Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity for middle market companies, their investors, and management teams. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, January 6th, 2025, and I hope that 2025 is off to a good start for you. We are going to jump right into the story this week, which revolves around a company called BeyondTrust. The U.S. Department of Treasury, disclosure, my former employer a couple of lifetimes ago, and surprising nobody, China. It was reported as the year wound down December 30th via a letter to Congress, no less, that the Treasury Department had suffered a breach earlier that month where hackers, quote, remotely accessed some Treasury computers and certain unclassified documents, unquote. A Wired article characterized the events as follows, quote, the attackers exploited vulnerabilities in remote tech support software provided by the identity and access management firm BeyondTrust, and Treasury said in its letter to lawmakers that the incident had been attributed to a China-sponsored advanced persistent threat actor. Reuters had the scoop in terms of reporting, but this item has widely been covered by both the tech press and other traditional media outlets. BeyondTrust themselves has a pretty good timeline of the incident on their website. If you're curious, I have linked to it below. The source of the event is a compromised API key, and the attacker, of course, is China. And so I actually don't want us to focus here on either of those things because you're not in charge of protecting your vendor's API keys, and you're not in charge of defeating Chinese cyber efforts. What you are in charge of, however, is understanding the reach and impact of the third parties that you lean on to run your shop. And so while BeyondTrust gives us, I think, a pretty good working example with specifics, I think it's more helpful for us to zoom out a little bit and think more broadly here. So by more broadly, I mean a couple of things. One, that you should have an understanding of the third parties, including SaaS vendors that you're using, specifically those that either have your data or have access to your systems and networks. Two, that your playbooks for when one of these vendors has an incident is in place and tested. It's not realistic for middle market companies to run everything without leveraging third parties. Actually, most of the strategic decisions include leveraging a third party for things that are operational, non-core functions, or even some core functions. And that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but it also introduces some of these types of risk. That's the trade-off here, is that you now need to understand how you will respond if BeyondTrust or Okta or CrowdStrike or any other industry-leading provider has an incident. What does it mean for you? What are you going to do? Have you documented and practiced that response, etc.? The nuance that China appears to have been targeting the Office of Foreign Assets Control, the OFAC team, and in fact that Treasury had just issued new sanctions against a Chinese company for their role in the Flax Typhoon APT, is also something that you can adapt to your own context. So perhaps this idea of a nation-state threat actor is not relevant to you or to your industry, but maybe it is. The other piece is maybe you're just collateral damage. This might occur in instances where you're using a third party who is the target, or the actual target is using the same third-party provider like BeyondTrust that you're using. As we've seen recently with the 0 days against file transfer utility Clio, attackers very rapidly adopt these opportunities to gain footholds and execute attacks against new networks, even if they aren't on their target list initially, simply because it's available and possible. So again, your job is to maintain this situational awareness, understand how you'll respond, be sure to get updates on the status of events or incidents impacting your vendors, and be able to move in a way that's appropriate for your own organization to minimize the risk and the overall impact of these events. No real fundraising updates this week, although the Wall Street Journal did run a good piece on private equity's, quote, dry powder countdown, noting more than $500 billion in capital awaiting deployment for the balance as we come into this fresh balance sheet this year. We'll keep an eye on that. To close, a quick reminder that you can find links to all the articles we covered in the comment section below. You can find back issues and written transcripts of these videos at intentionalcyber.com, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Intentional Brief.